Hey guys, what is up? My name is Steven and welcome to Show It Better. In this video, we have a very special guest, which is Alex Hogrefe from Visualizing Architecture. And if you don't know who Alex is, he is the director of the blog of Visualizing Architecture, which has taught many generations of us about representation, about architecture. And he is also the co-founder of Design Distill, an architectural visualization company. So if you're interested, I will leave all the links down below. This is going to be a fun chat, so maybe sit back, relax, get a cup of coffee, get some drinks. Oh, I forgot to mention that this is the second part of the chat. The first part, you guys will find it in Oliver's channel, which will also be linked in the description. But this is the second part of the channel where we talk about many other different topics, which are also very interesting. I hope you guys enjoy this talk, and I am going to take care of this talk. Bye. And I know that maybe like many art-based artists, like in like the whole industry right now, it's kind of like a distanced away from the whole real-time rendering engine craze. Like some look at it from a different way, but knowing that, for example, maybe V-Ray Vantage is coming out, or like a lot of classic render engines are coming out with their real-time rendering engine version. What do you think of like that sort of rendering, like with real-time rendering engines that can render out a ton of different stuff in just 1 minute?
Yeah, I think that's definitely where everything's heading. It's going there. The computers are getting just so incredibly powerful now. So you kind of have this like real-time side, and then you have the machines just getting super powerful with the graphics cards and whatnot. Everything's kind of going to that because the biggest issue with rendering is just waiting. That's the big thing. And if you don't have to wait anymore to get a result, if you can just sit there and tweak lights and tweak the intensity of lights and play with materials and get everything, so when you change that reflection or that bump or whatever, and it just kind of makes these subtle adjustments and you see all that in real time, I mean, it's huge. We do RT all the time in the office. V-Ray for SketchUp now you have RT, you have progressive, you have kind of all these different options to render in. And so we'll do RT all the time when we're sitting there refining materials and lighting and whatnot. So it's definitely where things are going. Again, whatever gets me to the image I have in my head, that's all I care about. So if I can do that faster, that's always a plus.
A lot of people are super interested in not only like the blog part, but also trying to see how you evolved into like an art-based artist working in the art-based industry. Because obviously within visualizing architecture, within the architectural representation world, you like to do a lot of stuff. But obviously with Design Distill, it is limited to mostly only like the rendering part and a very certain type of client, a very certain type of world. Why did you go in to create Design Distill with your partner, and how is that going?
Yeah. Well, I moved out to Boston to work for an architect. And, after 4 years of doing architecture, I started to realize, as you kind of move up in an architecture office, at least here in the States, what happens is you get more responsibility and you tend to do more construction administration. You're kind of managing the projects, and it's a little bit less design, and that's a little bit less of the interesting stuff to me. And the stuff I hate is construction administration and managing projects. And I realized, it's probably not where I wanted to go. And it just so happened that my business partner, Andrew, he was running an office, a visualization office. And he just reached out to me because we were actually, where I was working was just a few blocks from where his visualization office was. And we just met up and we started talking, and, we kind of hatched this plan that I would leave architecture and come work for this guy that I just met, that I don't know anything about. And I'll be honest, like, it was a big deal at the time because I got my master's in architecture. Like, the plan was I was going to be an architect. And up until that moment where I was meeting with Andrew and talking with him, I knew architecture. I wasn't super excited about being an architect, but I definitely wasn't thinking about leaving architecture. I was just thinking, how can I kind of direct my career to something that's more interesting, whether it's like how do I get into like the competition side of a big office where, we're just doing design competitions, or do I become an in-house renderer somehow? I didn't know. But Andrew was running his office, and he was just like, "Hey, come work over here." And it kind of caught me off guard. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, "This sounds great. Like this sounds like something that would, 10 years from now, I'd still be interested in doing this." So I jumped over, and it just from day one, it was exactly what I wanted to do. And it was just, what's really interesting about architecture visualization is every day, like the turnover of the projects is so quick. So every week you're working on a whole different set of images and for a completely different project. And with our office, we're doing a big chunk of our work is just with the Boston local architects. But Boston has a ton of architecture offices, and really big ones, like the biggest in the world, and then small ones, and just really high design, just really interesting stuff. And it's just so much fun kind of just seeing what all these different architects are working on. They usually come to our office for like the really important stuff. Like it's like, okay, we need to wow this client, or this is a really important project for us. Okay, let's get some really good visualization going on. So we tend to get thrown into the really interesting projects on top of that. So it's just so cool to just every week have a completely different project. It's always interesting. It's great working with so many different architects. We work with landscape architects. We work with interior designers. I mean, we work with everybody, developers. We're really starting to spread out now, and we're doing a lot of work, on the West Coast with a bunch of really cool clients. We're doing a ton of stuff in like Texas. It's interesting every day. Whereas when you are in architecture and you're designing a building, I mean, depending on what you're designing, it's like going to be 2 years of working on that project. It's just, it's a very different pace. And the visualization world is just, it works with kind of how I'm set up to think, and the turnover and stuff. I'm making it sound like I have ADD or something. I don't. I like the every week coming in, and it's a new set of images. It's a new client. It's just a lot of fun. It's fun. Like today, I had a bunch of conference calls, and I was talking with lead architects of these big architecture offices. And if I had stayed where I was, like, I wouldn't be kind of having these discussions with these people. It's a really exciting kind of position to be in.
Yeah, no, I understand. And it was actually one of the things that I felt when I was working in an office. It feels like you're working so long to get something done, and in the end the client changes and the thing gets
value engineered like crazy.
And I see that you have maybe two different approaches. Design to Still, you're more connected to more commercial work, if you will, and then versus your blog, Visualizing Architecture, you go more conceptual. You can really explore and go into that side, creative side. How does that relate to each other? Can you bring the visualization work that you do into the office, or does that make any sense at all to do that overlap?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question, because one's with a client and one's without a client. And it's two very different processes. One is you have these kind of variables and parameters, and you have to stay within it, and it's not just about yourself, it's about what does this other person want. Whereas the other, my website, there's no variables, there's no parameters. It's whatever I want, whatever I think about. And in some cases that can be worse, because you never you keep making changes because you're never happy with something, and you just keep reworking it, keep changing it. Whereas, working for a client, you have these kind of very specific kind of direction and goals, and there's kind of a stopping point with the client. And so they're two very different things, and there's positives and negatives for both, but they definitely cross over. Just doing stuff on my website, it's always kind of the experimental. I'm testing out things that I want to test out. And then, what I learn from the website, I carry over into the images we're doing for the client. And then the other way around, just working with so many different clients, you kind of start to learn what people like and what people don't like. There's definitely, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Everyone kind of has, there's like overarching concepts that tend to work for everybody. And you start to kind of learn what works and what doesn't work. And I think that's really valuable, just knowing kind of what affects people. You figure out like what kind of lighting really works. Every time you do like a certain dusk image, the client always likes that. Whereas like a different kind of dusk image, it's like 50%. Sometimes they like it, sometimes they don't. That's really valuable information to know, because I don't know, to me, that's important, especially when I'm doing stuff on my website. It's not just what I like, but like, I'm trying to figure out how to explain this. I'm always trying to figure out kind of what is this like perfect image? What is like the perfect image that not only I like, but everyone else likes? I find that there's something interesting about that. I'll never figure that out, but I think it's an interesting thought of like, is there an image that anybody that looks at it, they find it's just like, it has this like innate beauty, or like it's something that everyone is attracted to. And you can't do that by just working in isolation and just playing around by yourself on a website. You kind of need that feedback loop with our office, when you're working with clients and stuff. Like getting that feedback is really valuable in kind of making, kind of putting those ideas together.
I imagine like while you were talking, like if you didn't have Design Distill and if you would just dedicate yourself to the blog, your work also would look very different, because you're not having this constant feedback in the both worlds of, being much more objective. You're not just such like an artist that is only looking at himself and at his work, but also trying to get feedback from clients, from people that don't have like an imagery education. And obviously it feeds back onto visualizing architecture.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed.
And I think a lot of people we identify so much with you, because a lot of people, when they start to study architecture, maybe they don't understand like what they're actually going to do. Maybe no one actually knows what an architect does until you actually, graduate and have to find a job and, find yourself doing in AutoCAD all day or Revit all day, designing bathrooms or whatever. So I think you are like very, very much similar to a lot of people in the sense that you discovered that apart from architecture being your passion, you also have a passion for imagery, a passion for the visual, like a very artistic touch into your work. And my question is like, what advice would you give to people that are maybe even studying architecture right now and are kind of lost? They're not sure that if they want to create buildings for a building for 2 years, and trying to decipher like, hey, is this what I'm bound to do for the rest of my life? Is architecture good for me? Or like, is maybe ArchViz a way out? Or maybe, anything that's related to architecture, another way out? So what advice would you give, all these students?
I mean, that's a tough question. For me, I didn't have this, really thorough plan. I knew that I wanted to get my master's and I wanted to, work for an architect. It wasn't until I started working for an architect that I started to kind of realize what I liked and what I didn't like. So, small architecture offices, you tend to wear a lot more hats. You take on a lot more responsibility. You'll kind of work on every part of the process, from design development, concept development, to putting the drawings together, to managing clients. And so, with the small offices, you kind of get to experience every part of being an architect. And that the office, when I moved to Boston, that's exactly how it was. It's a very small office. So I kind of worked on every aspect of it. So that helped me kind of realize what I liked and what I didn't like. That's step one. Step two is, okay, once you figure out what you like and what you don't like, how do you kind of start going in that path? And that I don't really know, except for, for a larger office, it's, in some ways I could see that being even tougher, because with the larger offices, you tend to get pigeonholed into certain positions, whether it's doing construction drawings. I think it's harder to kind of find your way into what you want to do in the larger offices. The smaller offices, I think it's easier for you to kind of take on all these different responsibilities, and the things you like, you can kind of you can make it known that you're more interested in that, and you can kind of go to the architect and kind of, or the owner of the company, and kind of inform them like you want to spend a little more time on that. Making the leap into like visualization, all I can say is it was the best decision I ever made, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be how everyone else feels. There's a lot of people that they love designing something and then seeing it built. It kind of goes back to, how I love seeing my images printed on paper. Like I love that, like physical, kind of seeing that physical thing. There's a lot of people that they don't really get satisfaction until the building is built and they were a part of it being built. With what I do with visualization, you never see, I mean, you see the buildings get built, but it's not because of you. You kind of created the image very early on. You're very disconnected from the thing actually getting built. And, so there's those kind of give and takes. It's, what do you find important? There's some people that we've hired that they worked for us for several years, and they realize, no, I want to go back into architecture. This just isn't my thing. So maybe that's the answer, is you test it out. Like if you want to get into visualization, go work for an office for a couple of years. Nothing is set in stone. I would say do that earlier than later. Don't work in an office for 20 years and then decide you want to do something else. Kind of test that stuff out early, really figure out, go on a lot of dates with the different parts of architecture and kind of figure out, what it is that you want to do.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
It could change, too, as you get older, kind of the things that were important to you when you were younger aren't important when you're older. So it's a tough question, and there's not really I don't think there's a right answer, except to kind of just test things out and try to, figure out. Again, I worked at a small office, so I was able to do a lot of the different kind of parts of being an architect. And so I feel like I figured a lot of this stuff out quicker than others, especially that start out in like the really large offices and don't really get a chance to kind of do all the different parts.
No, but your answer was on point, because you really do have to experiment and then see for yourself. Everybody has a different opinion. It will feel different in each part of architecture. But then moving to, still talking about architecture visualization, but moving into more of an industry aspect of it. I know that you're really good at doing stills, doing like static images. That's something that we are passionate about as well. But we see a tendency of the industry moving more into maybe videos, VR, and like moving subjects and really engaging the viewer, the audience, into those more immersive scenarios. How do you see like the industry in 5 to 10 years? Do you think are you going to adapt in that way? I saw that you experiment with 360-degree images already. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's another I wish I knew what the industry would be doing in 20 years. What I see it right now is, it's just going to be a collection. It's not going to be one of these things where no one's ever going to do still images and it's all going to go to VR, or no one's going to do VR or still and it's all going to be animations. It's just going to be, you're going to need to be able to provide any of those services. Like it's, we've kind of carved out a niche for ourselves that we still, a lot of our clients are only looking for still images. And there's other offices here in Boston that they primarily do animations with a few stills kind of with those animations. They do kind of entire packages and branding packages. We are more well known for our stills. They have a certain look, and so a lot of people come to us just for the stills. So it's kind of, the stills are what we like to do, and because that's what we like to do, and we think we do it really well, it's just sort of naturally kind of moved in that direction, that the clients we have and the clients we find, they come to us for those stills. Now we do offer VR. On occasion we do video animations, but it's definitely not something we're trying to find animation projects. It's more, I mean, we probably do maybe 2 or 3 animations a year, if that. And we'll do those just because, you know, it's a client that we've done a lot of projects for, and it just so happens that their client really wants an animation, and therefore they're coming to us and they're just asking, can you do an animation along with the stills? And we'll say, yeah, we'll try to make that work. The thing about we also do 360s. The thing about the 360s, and they're not the stereoscopic 360s. They're just normal 360s that you put in a Pano software and you can kind of look around and spin around. The nice things about those is we can still Photoshop those, you know, and make them look like our still images. And that's, those are actually a lot of fun to work on. And those are actually quite popular with a lot of our clients. We do quite a bit of 360s. Like I said, we can do VR, we can do stereoscopic, but to be honest, we just don't, no one asks us for VR. I mean, it's such a rare thing to be asked to do some sort of VR kind of presentation. And again, it could just be that with our niche that we have, all of our clients, our clients just naturally don't look for VR type deliverable. So yeah, you know, again, it goes back to, we like doing the stills, and I think it just naturally is, we do stills really well, and so the people that come to us are coming to us for our stills, and it's just kind of naturally worked out that way.
Now I'm interested much more in like what you do outside of Hogrefe. Like obviously during the week you are in design to still, and in some weekends you're visualizing architecture. But apart from that, like what do you do? I mean, like do you have
and apart from families and
apart from family as well?
I know that you've got a lot on your plate.
Every day when I come home from work, because we live on the East Coast and we're on the wrong end of the time zone, it gets dark so early. So I have about 3 hours of daylight when I get home from work, and I'll spend the first like hour of that, literally no joke, every day I'll go out and I'll just shoot hoops. It's kind of like my meditation. I'll just go out and I'll just shoot baskets in our driveway, and my daughter and son will come out and she'll rebound for me, and my son will ride his bike around the driveway, and I'll just I'm that weirdo in our neighborhood in Boston that's always just outside shooting hoops, and everyone knows me as the guy that like just shoots baskets out front. So there's that. And then the other thing I love to do is, believe it or not, construction. So like I do just a ton of work on my house. So we bought this old house that was built in the 1920s. And the thing, when we bought it, it just needed so much work. and I've renovated bathrooms. I'm getting ready to start a kitchen here soon. I do a ton of woodwork, so I've like kind of built up a shop in our basement, and I'll do all the millwork, all the trim work with the crown molding, all that stuff. Like I love just like kind of building stuff with my hands, which is like, again, it's like a therapeutic thing because all I do is work on the computer all day, every day. So when I come home, it's like, go shoot hoops, go do something physical, and then all right, I'm gonna work on my deck, this weekend. So it's that juggling of the physical and then the digital is kind of what I'm about. And then hanging out with my family.
I think I'm a really hands-on type of guy too. I think I like to build stuff, and it would be a dream to have a wood shop and be able to work on my home. I think
Don't get me wrong, it's not a legit wood shop. Like
I mean, I really am a true. Yeah, but I get you.
No, when I was in grad school, I worked. I ran the wood shop. Like it was like one of my jobs in grad school was to run the wood shop, and that's where like I really fell in love with making stuff. But I also just learned how to use all the tools and stuff. So then when I graduated and we moved to Boston, and we bought this house, like I was in. Like I just like every year I'll kind of buy 5 or 6 more tools that I need. So I'm constantly trying to like grow the collection. But there's nothing better than spending the weekend kind of like I built a fireplace mantle over the winter. That was so much fun. Just like all this kind of stuff. I love like building the physical stuff.
So funny. It's such a contrast between the digital.
Only with the blogs, with your projects, it's really interesting to see what you're doing, what you're working on each day. So thank you for all the content that you're putting out for everyone. And even though you're not seeing yourself as an educator, you've educated like tons of generations, and you've inspired a ton of people to go into Hogrefe or to pay much more attention to the visuals, to the image as a project in itself. So I think just for that, I think we all say thank you. I don't know if you have like any final words or Oliver as well.
No, I'm not good with like these moments of wisdom at the end. My biggest thing is just, the one thing that kind of jumps out of me just from this whole discussion is, just kind of building up that sensitivity to just, it's not whatever you end up doing, whether it's visualization or something else in architecture, it's not going to happen. There's no quick way to get to the final result that you want. Everything's going to take time. What is it? Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours. Like everything's going to take time. And the more time you invest in it, the more you just kind of study images and study other people's work and just, try to build up that sensitivity. That's where you're going to start to create, the work and the images that you want to create. And so I guess that's my biggest thing is, there's no shortcuts to a lot of this stuff. It's just kind of building up that sensitivity and that subconscious ability to just kind of see good work and create work and kind of have that idea in your head of what to aim for. So there's my wisdom.
Yeah, for me, those are words of wisdom for sure.
So that was it. I hope you guys enjoyed this chat as much as I did. Remember that if you haven't seen the first part, you can go to the link in the description to see the first part of our chat over on Oliver's channel. And that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know who else would you like to see here, maybe talking with us. And thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.